Hello everybody, my name is Pravus and welcome to Plague Inc. Evolved with more custom scenarios. On today's agenda, we have a scenario called 2020 Economic Crisis by Northern Soldier after devastating plague of COVID-19 global economic recession occurred. Yes, it did. Wonderful sentence structure, by the way. Your job is to destroy global financial system and let the coronavirus finish its job. Unnecessary possessive apostrophe. Contains a lot of customization and actual symptoms. Try this out. Also, you did Super Mutants from Fallout 4. Did I play Super Mutants? That's ringing a bell, but I can't really remember for sure. This is a virus type. ATP boost, Darwinist, Aquastrike, Shemophile, and Symptostasis seem fine. Normal difficulty, and it's called SARS-CoV-2. And the whole point of this scenario is that it's not based around COVID exactly, at least not by itself. It's really about the 2020 recession, so we're going to go ahead and call it that one instead. This is not about COVID-19. I think that's confirmation right there. The plague is already at its peak. Again, unnecessary apostrophe. Plague itself is not as severe as Spanish flu. However, the worst will occur soon. China's economy is the first to suffer of the pandemics. Factories are closed, people are closed in their houses. In some cases welded, actually. Only essential workers are allowed to work. Alright, so again, the premise of this scenario is supposed to be based around the other flip side to the current global crisis, and that is the economic impact. It's not just a public health issue, though that is certainly substantial in and of itself, but it's also an economic one in terms of, like, what's the trade-off? How much are we going to shut down the economy in order to try and stave off the health crisis? And ultimately, in the long term, once you take in a global appreciation for the economic impact, which is going to have the most devastation on the human race? And I don't really know the answer to that one. I think that's going to be something that economists are going to study for many years following this thing. But some people think that the economic damage will ultimately result in more deaths than the disease itself. I don't know. It's kind of scary, honestly. I do know that things are looking pretty bad right now. Certainly for me they are. So for China, that is where things are going to be starting, which makes perfect sense. They are going to be feeling some certain production and trade shocks that's going to impact the world, and then we need to capitalize on that and destroy the world economy. It's gonna be glorious. Transmissions, what do we got? Actually looks like we have some, like, real transmissions from the disease itself. We have bats, pangolin, air, droplets, and fomites. Okay, but that leads to lockdown denial. People do not respect lockdown and decide to meet their friends or go on corona holidays, which gives you land transmission. Plague denial. People do not believe in the virus, assuming it's another conspiracy theory. They refuse to wear surgical masks, which increases air transmission and social immunity. President suggested, misspelled, that instead of lockdown, we should let the people get infected and everyone will recover soon. Didn't work at all. First off, did the president suggest that one? I don't remember that one. I do remember the UK had theorized that might work, trying to go for the more of the herd immunity approach. Actually, I think Sweden's been doing something semi-similar as well. You take the least vulnerable, kind of let them go about their daily lives mostly as normal, staying away from the vulnerable. The idea being, intentionally it will have people getting infected so we can build up an immunity, and once you get to that 60-70% population threshold where the herd immunity basically eradicates the disease, boom, you're done. That was the idea behind it. Of course, I've seen some data, let's say in Sweden, suggesting that they have a huge spike in cases, and that proves why it's such a bad idea. To which I say, I don't think you can really make that call yet. Just because, let's say, Sweden has, 5 times more cases than Norway, is to be expected if the whole point is to do short-term infectivity. We'll only know after the next year or two whether or not it actually was a good approach to go for the herd immunity. Be a very interesting study. I really have no idea if it's going to work or not, but I'm very curious to see what it is. That said, I haven't really heard that taken very seriously in the United States, so I have no idea. Coughing, sneezing, shortness of breath, acute respiratory syndrome, fever, immune suppression, and sweating. Okay, again, more of the symptoms of the actual disease. That leads to lockdown. People are advised to stay at home to avoid contact with the infected, increasing severity. Is that good? We already have a pretty hefty amount of severity and lethality. I'm not sure if that's going to be good for me. Abilities, we start off with our drug, cold, and heat resistance. We also have bio-anarchists? Why? Cold resistance, heat resistance, too few med personnel. Situation is so bad that there is only 1 nurse per 50 sick. Increases effectiveness in wealthy and poor countries. I have no idea if that's a bad ratio. I actually have no idea what a typical ratio would be. Med surplices shortage. I think you mean med supplies shortage. Pharmacy stores lack of ethanol-based soap. Increases virus survivability in all climates. Oil stock price dropped to $1. Low demand for oil in air and sea transport sector. You know, I do seem to remember that, actually. Wasn't there a point, like about a month ago, where oil actually went negative? I.e., people would pay you to take their oil? I think that was actually true. Now, part of that's going to be exactly based on what the author is saying here, which was the the lack of demand as far as transportation services due to the lockdowns, but also I believe that a part of it was because of the trade conflict that was going on between OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, and Russia, which led to some different production issues and driving prices down. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden, boom, demand just completely dried up. Kind of crazy times. I'm like, when are people going to pay me to get some gasoline? I wouldn't be opposed. And the lockdown, public pressure, protests, and falling economy forced the government to reopen the country. Infectivity drastically increases. So I can't really decide what we want here. I mean, we've got transmission, which basically has to do with defying the lockdown. But if we obey the lockdown, we gain a little infectivity and also some severity. Like, I get that having the extra infectivity could in the long term result in more devastation because more people are sick. But I guess it's trying to also account for the fact that the short-term impact of trying to respect the lockdown is hitting the economy? I don't know. I can't really decide if this is actually trying to be based around the actual disease or if it's based just around the reactions to policies around the disease. Either way, let's go for the lockdown denial, which gets me some extra land transmission, which should be helpful getting me out of China. We'll also go ahead and pick up the plague denial for the air transmission. Both of those seem pretty good. We have partying. Corona? What corona? Let's make a party for the urban and wealthy. Also, college kids at the beach. Yep, I remember reading a lot of angry Reddit posts about those guys. It will all end this summer. People are convinced that virus dies in high temperatures and therefore the pandemics will end before August. Some people still are hoping for that. I think that that's more or less like kind of fallen down the cliff here and people aren't really expecting it, but it would be nice. It would be very, very nice if that were to happen. Hot and rural, huh? It could be kind of good for me. Let's go for the social immunity that leads to just drink some disinfectants. President suggested the best cure for COVID-19 is to use disinfectants like regular antibiotics. What could go wrong? It's a bit of a gross simplification there, and also, it never suggested to drink, actually the case that's particularly famous, fish tank cleaner. I mean, I'm sorry, who drinks fish tank cleaner just because of freaking hydroxychloroquine? You think that one ingredient makes a cure? Not how it works. Anyway, so yeah, we could go for this. Water transmission would definitely be beneficial for me. I'm going to go for the urban and wealthy, and I'm going to go for the it will all end this summer. Then we have Corona Challenge. Teenagers start licking objects in public places to prove there's not such a thing as the coronavirus. I'm not sure if they were actually trying to prove that there was no coronavirus as much as just try to get attention through shock factor. Which, let's be honest, that's basically what social media is. It's just a giant attention contest. That's all it is. So even if you're infamous, sometimes it's still worth to do stupid things like licking freaking toilet seats and other things. Ugh. Or licking all the bread in the grocery store, which is another thing that happened. Which, by the way, in the few cases where that did happen in the United States and got filmed and the people got caught, I think they got charged with bioterrorism. I'm not even kidding. Which kind of makes sense based on what they're doing. It's just, wow, dude. Taking it seriously. All right, so we got lockdown, then we got low demand, high supply. As long as people stay at home, many cultural, gastronomic, tourism, and transport companies suffer from a lack of customers. Yeah, that's true. You're not wrong there. Big company bailout policy. Big companies, not vulnerable to the bankruptcy, exploit the bailout policy. Gastronomy sector collapse. Local restaurants just can't hold it any longer. You know, when I think gastro, I think, you know, like a gastrologist kind of doctor, someone who's involved in digestive systems and stuff. I don't think of the restaurant sector, but okay. No, I mean, you words mean whatever you want them to mean, I guess. Go for it. It's fine. Mass layoffs. Low company revenue leads to firing of more employees, high severity, and tourism sector collapse. We're already kind of high on the severity. I'm very concerned about that. Might be better to go for... Well, I don't know, actually. Maybe it's better to go for some resistances. We have plenty of points. That's not the issue. Let's go for the extra effectiveness in the wealthy and poor countries, more climates, and medical industry sector crisis. Hospitals require more respirators, oxygen valves, hazmat suits to serve more infected. The wealthy countries are vulnerable. Yeah, that seems okay. And then we have face masks shortage. Cure research slows down. They are working on the cure, but I don't think that's going to help them much. I'm mostly concerned about getting into all the islands, which it looks like we have gotten into most of them already. We've got Greenland, we've got Madagascar, we're waiting on the Caribbean. Actually, the transport sector is collapsing, apparently. Well, there you go. However, we did not get into Cuba. Gosh dang it, the one place that's going to be free. No! I'm going to have to restart here. Oh, what a shame. Yeah, this is the problem with having an extremely high infectivity scenario. Also pretty high severity and other stuff, though, but it's just not exactly balanced. It's going to go incredibly fast, and then you're going to have a lot of luck base as far as whether people shut down, because I can't really control just how freaking high that severity is going to go. That said, it also looks like I may have made a mistake going for the Darwinist and the extra mutation chance, because we're mutating a lot faster than I think I expected. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and jump forward a little bit. Okay, we managed to get into every country pretty quickly. It turns out going for things like reopen borders seems to help a little bit. Face mask shortage, blah, blah, blah. Not worried about any of that. Let's go and start ramping things up. So we have the mass layoffs. That leads to the desperation, corruption, education system fails, online classes are ineffective. Some people really like online learning. I am not one of those people. I personally can't find myself concentrating at all. Let's go for the tourism sector, and transport sector collapses, which gets a bit more extra lethality. Gastronomy sector collapse. Yeah, we're just trying to shut down sectors of the economy, and this is where we're actually starting to see the economy side of the scenario starting to build up a little bit, which is the main reason I picked this up in the first place. So, glad to see that is a thing. Let's see, desperation, sure, we'll pick that up. That leads to stock market instability. You know, weirdly enough, despite the fact that things have been kind of crazy out there, you really wouldn't know it too much from the stock market, at least not as much as I would have expected, given the economy shrinking as much as it has been. Kind of weird. I don't really even know what to believe about that anymore. Essential sector collapse. Mass layoffs continues, electricity cuts, water shortage, roads blocked, internet shut down, and people are outraged. Oh gosh, the people are outraged. That's just terrible. What are we going to do about the people being outraged? I think it more matters that the economy is a little... Forget your outrage. Be afraid. Be afraid, guys. The entire world is shutting down. We're going straight into post-apocalyptic territory here. Oi! Manufacturers declaring bankruptcy, agricultural sector collapses. A lot of sectors here, actually. Country in chaos, police officers strikes, distribution sector collapse, army revolt, economic chaos leads to a civil war. Holy crud. Stock market collapse, big companies collapse, banking system collapse. Yeesh. There's actually more symptoms here than absolutely necessary. Now, I think that may be one of the reasons the mutation chance is as high as it is maybe the author really wanted to try and experience as much of the content and customization as possible. The problem is, without tweaking some of the numbers, it ends up being an extremely imbalanced scenario. So we were able to beat that in a whopping 151 days. Like, that's almost a new record. Almost. It's definitely uncommon for me to be that fast. Lordy, 36% cure progress, 160,434 points, 3 stars in total. My virus called SARS. Oh, I guess it did restart. I was going to say, that's not my name. What are you talking about? Yeah, so I think that theoretically this scenario could be pretty fun. Having the virus itself being its own thing that you can never devolve, and basically everything is just new policies and or reactions to policies and how that destroys the world is a pretty interesting concept behind the scenario. The only complaint I really have, besides like some bad grammar and stuff, mostly comes down to the balancing. I'll say yes, but it's sort of a tentative one. I think that mostly the scenario is way too easy and too fast and needs to be grossly rebalanced in order to be a bit more fun. But besides that, I think conceptually it's a pretty good concept for a scenario. You're almost there. Just needs a bit of tweaking and it'll be better. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If so, then I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.